Hi everyone, it's Tracy at For the Love of Stamping and welcome to my craft room. Today I'm going to show you a brand new card fold that I invented. It's called a platform fold, and as you can see, the base of the card has this little platform on it that'll allow you to be able to stand the card up. For our card today, I'm going to create the same style, however I'm going to use some different colors. What you're going to need for supplies is you're going to need a piece of 4¼ by 11 inch Whisper White thick cardstock, which we're going to score at 2½ and 8 inches. You'll need a piece of Night of Navy cardstock, which is going to go into the center of the card. It measures 4¼ by 4 by 5¼ You'll need another piece of Night of Navy and a layering piece of the Plaid Tidings Designer Series paper. This measures 4 inches wide by 2 3/4, and this one is 3 3/4 by 2½. In addition, you will need a piece of white cardstock, just a piece of scrap, so that you can stamp the bow from the gift wrap stamp set that is in the holiday catalog, and that's this one right here. We're going to use this one here, and you're going to need Memento ink to do that. You'll also need the coordinating punch that comes in the bundle. And to color it, we're going to use the Stampin' Blends in the dark Pretty Peacock and the dark Night of Navy. To add a little bit of extra to the card front, we're going to use the Be Mine stitched die. And that's this one here, and it's just this little border piece. You'll need a piece of silver foil, and this measures 4¼ and don't worry about the width on it, because all you're going to be doing with this is taking the die and placing it on top of the silver foil paper, run it through your die cutting machine, then bring it back, turn the die the other way, and run it through again. And that will allow you to create this little piece here. And I'll go over that again with you, because the one thing that I want to make sure that you do is the first time you go through in your die cutting machine, line it up so that the crook of the scallop is right along the edge of the silver foil paper. That'll allow you, when you bring it back, to run it through again to ensure that you get your scallops lined up. You want to make sure that they're even at the on both ends. Okay? All right. If we decide we want to do the mechanism that's in the back, then I'll show you how to do that. I have created these cards without the mechanism, but if you want it to be a little bit more upright, then you just need to take a piece of Whisper White cardstock that's measuring 3/4 inch by 4 3/4, and we're going to score it at 1/2 inch, then 2½ inches, and then 4 1/4. That'll give us two ends here that are 1/2 inch each, and those will be the pieces that we fold under to allow us to attach it to the card here, and then allow us to use it as our stand here. Now you'll see on mine, I've only adhered a small section of it, and that's to allow me to be able to fold this up and put it into an envelope. If you're finding that this isn't staying in place, you can use a little piece of repositionable tape just to hold it in place, touching it down, and then the card will stand up all on its own. Okay, let's get started. I'll move some of this stuff out of the way so we have some space here to do our crafting. And we'll start with scoring the Whisper White cardstock to create the platform fold. So I've got my paper trimmer sitting here. My first score line is going to be at 2½ inches. And we'll just place this right into the paper trimmer and use the score blade to create that first score. Now, if you're like me and you have sort of limited space on your craft desk and you don't have the ability or the space to open up the arm on your paper trimmer, then what I've done is I've taken and I've seen where this score line is, and I placed that on the 5½ inch mark, and I can see that it lines up here. And then I'm just going to use my score blade and score there. And that will give me a 2½ inch piece here and a 3 inch section here, which means now this measures 5½ So when I take my Night of Navy and I place it in the center, I know I've got a nice border all the way around. Okay, so let's move the scoreboard out of the way for now. And to fold this card, the smaller section, which is the piece that's 4 1/4 by 2 1/2, is going to form the base. So we're just gonna fold that back like so. I'm not using my bone folder to give it a really sharp crease. I don't want to do that because the more you do that, the less it's going to stand up. So when we do our top fold, so we've taken this one back, this one's going to come forward. And this one I will use my bone folder to give myself that nice crisp edge. If I can find my bone folder. If not, then I'll just use the edge of a block. Sometimes we lose things even though they're right there in plain sight. Anywho, so that'll create the card base, which is our platform fold. All right, let me set that aside because now I'm going to show you how to cut the triangle that you see on the front of the card. So I mentioned earlier that you need 2 pieces of cardstock, one in a base color and one which is designer series paper. I'll bring back my paper trimmer. And I'm going to start with the Night of Navy, and I'm going to mark the center point along the 4-inch edge. So I'll just open this up, and what I like to do is, I know obviously 1/2 of 4 is 2, so I line up the edge of the cardstock right on the 2, and I take a little white pencil and I just mark that edge. That means now I can take the point, place it in the groove of the paper trimmer, and put that little white dot in the groove of the paper trimmer towards the bottom. And then I will then close down the arm and I will run the blade across. That creates my first cut. Rotate it, do the same thing, put the little point of the Night of Navy cardstock into the paper trimmer, into the groove, line up the point that you had marked, hold it down, and start the cut. I like to keep my finger on it because I don't want it to move on me. So that gives me the first layer that's going to go on the front of the card. We'll do the same thing with the Plaid Tidings designer series paper, only this time this measures 2 3/4. So 1/2 of 2 3/4 is 1 7/8. So I'll line this up at 1 7/8. Take my white pencil, just mark it so that I can see it, and then I'll place the point once again and that little mark right into the groove of my paper trimmer, and I'll trim that away like so. Just hold it down and cut, and then I will rotate it and do the same thing on this side, just like so. Make sure it's tape. There we go. All right, so those little pieces are scrap. They can move aside. I'm done with the paper trimmer. I'll move that aside. And I'm going to now layer the 2 pieces together. So I'm going to, you'll notice that they get a little bit wider at the bottom, but I'm not worrying too much about that because once I do my bow, it's going to adhere right in front and it's going to cover over that, and it's just going to still look like it's got a nice even border all the way around. All right, so I'll use some Tombow. Whoa, brand new one, and it's already leaking. And I'm just going to put some Tombow on the back of this. I don't even need to squeeze it. It's coming out pretty quick here. Just want to make sure I get to the edges. And then I'll take that and I'll layer it right onto the Night of Navy. Nice that we can use the Tombow because it'll allow us to move this around and position it so that we get a nice even border along the top and the sides. Okay, just like so. And I'm going to set that aside to dry. I'm just going to touch it down so that it stays. I got a little bit of adhesive on there, but I do have an adhesive eraser that I can come at it afterwards and just erase that little bit of adhesive that got onto the Night of Navy. That will then layer on to here. So we'll let it dry for a second. In the meantime, we can go ahead and we can stamp the greeting. in white craft ink and use some white embossing powder and run it under the embossing gun. And just for the sake of our video, I've already done that. So you'll see I've stamped my Merry Christmas and I've embossed it. And I'll just go ahead and layer this into the inside of the card while I'm waiting on that. Again, I'll just use my Tombow. Go around the edges. Brand new Tombow, like I said. When I was doing my other cards, I had to shake the daylights out of the bottle to get any little drops to come out of it. This one's the exact opposite. So I'll just layer this right into the middle of the card. Again, I have a 1/4 inch border all the way around, and my Tombow lets me move that so I can get it positioned nice and square. Okay. And I'll just give that a second to dry as well. This is now probably dry enough, and I can probably grab my adhesive eraser and take off the little bits of adhesive that were on the side of my triangle. I wish Stampin' Up! Would come back out with these, because this is the greatest little thing to get rid of little bits of adhesive that you don't want, like that, and a little bit right there as well. So it just takes it right off. I think you can buy these in the store anyways, but Stampin' Up! Used to sell them, and it was nice to have. It was a nice little tool that you could keep in your toolbox. All right, so this one here, I'm just gonna layer right on top like so, and then I'll come in and I'll add that little trim on the bottom, and then we'll do our bow. All right, so I'll put some Tombow on with this one as well. And just get all the way around the edges, because I do want it to stay down in place. All right, so I'm just going to open this up this way and position this on the card like so, giving myself about a 1/4 inch border across the top, and then just lay it and place it down. All right, so I mentioned earlier that we're going to use some silver foil to cover the bottom edge of the card front, and to do that, you'll take the silver foil paper and run it through the Big Shot. So I'm just going to do this again with you, just so that you know, remember what I had said. Take your die that you get from the Be My Stitched set and lay it onto the silver foil. And you'll notice, let me grab my magnetic plate. You'll notice that when I'm doing this, I'm only just cutting a smidgen off of the top edge. And I'm actually lining that little crook right onto the side of the silver foil. And then I'll just line this up so that it looks like it's pretty even from here to here, and I'll run that through the Big Shot. Okay, and once that's run through the Big Shot, then I'll come back and do it the other way. So for the sake of time, I do have a piece already done for us, and that's right here. And we're just going to run that with a little bead of Tombow as well, and we'll just place it along the edge. You can use whatever adhesive you like, but you want to make sure that you're only putting adhesive on the portion that's going to be stuck to the card. If you ended up putting the adhesive on the back of this silver foil piece, you'd probably put it in the places that you don't want it, and therefore get adhesive onto the inside of your card. Because if you notice here, when I open up my card, you can see that it comes down across the edge of that card front. So I actually do have some of that nice tear and tape. I'm just going to use a piece of that, and I'll run that across the bottom edge of the card front, just like so. And then I know now that I've only got adhesive where it's supposed to go. Just snip that piece off, and I'll just press that down to release the backing off of it. And then I'll start the adhering of this piece onto the front. And what I like to do is I'm just going to pick up the edge of the adhesive backing to start it, and then I'll run the piece of silver foil across the adhesive. But I don't want to take the whole thing off just yet. So I'm just going to take this piece and I'm just going to fold it up and start layering this on like so, making sure that I get the edge right on the edge, the silver edge on the edge of the white. And if I have a little bit too much, I'm not going to worry, because I'll just take my scissors and I'll trim that off. So I'll just start to pull that adhesive backing off, and this will help me to make sure that I get this straight. And as I do that, I can make sure that I get this on like so. Oops, a little bit off, of course. There we go. Okay, so now I'll take my scissors and just trim this little edge off so that it's straight on the card and I don't have any excess, like so. Okay, just like that. All right, so now let's do the bow. We're gonna stamp that in on a piece of Whisper White cardstock. And I'm going to use Memento ink for that. I'm going to color it with my blends, and then I'm going to add probably a little bit of Wink of Stella at the end over top of the bow, just to make it glisten a little bit. So using the bow from the gift wrapped stamp set and my Memento ink, get that up nice and dark, set it aside, and we'll stamp it down. I like to hold it for just a little bit, just so that I know that the ink transfers onto the white cardstock, and I'll set that aside. And because our blends tend to leak through the back of our cardstock, which is normal, I would like to put down an extra little piece of paper so that I don't end up getting it on the surface of whatever I have underneath. So we'll start off with the Night of Navy, and I'm going to take the brush tip and I'm going to color in parts of the bow. These Stampin' blends are so nice to use. I mean, the color just goes on so nice and smooth. And it just, you know, you don't see any streaks, which I think is one of my favorite things about these types of markers. I really am happy that we have these markers back. I know that when Stampin' Up! First came out with their blendabilities, we had a few issues, and they went back and they made sure that before they released them again, that we would be able to put out a quality product that Stampin' Up! Has always done. So as I age, I find I need my glasses, so I just put my glasses on so that I can see a little bit better as I'm coloring here. Hopefully I'm in view of the, for you all to be able to see here. So we'll just finish this off. One more and then I'm done, and then I'm going to bring my Wink of Stella, the clear Wink of Stella, and I'm just going to add that to the surface because you'll see how much it's going to make it sparkle. I love Wink of Stella. I swear I keep them in business because I go through so much of it. So you'll see as I do this, it just gives it that little shine. And you don't need a lot, you just need enough to make it look sparkly. And this just goes right on top, and I mean the blends dried so quickly, almost instantly. You don't have to worry about picking it up on the tip of your Wink of Stella, which is, yeah, you don't want that to happen. And then with our other markers, our Stampin' Write markers, you could do the same thing, but what it would do with the Stampin' Write markers is the Wink of Stella would help to blend the ink. all this is doing is just adding that shine to the surface. And I'll just finish this side here. And then we'll punch it out with the coordinating punch. I love having a punch that coordinates with a stamp set. Makes it so easy. There's no fussy cutting and you don't need your die cut machine. I'm a punch lover, I have to admit it. I love using punches to cut out my shapes. Dies are fantastic as well. I mean, for some things that are very intricate that you can't, you know, you can't cut, fussy cut. It just tends to, you know, it makes it much easier, obviously. So now I'll use the punch. And I'll just lay that into that piece into the punch and we'll punch it out. So give me a second while I just line it up within the punch. Like this, a little bit up on that side. There we go. And we'll just discard that piece. Okay, so now I'm going to use some dimensionals and I'm going to adhere that to my card. We're just going to put it right here. So let me grab probably some of the bigger size dimensionals as opposed to the minis. I might need a mini though in the middle. I think the middle is a little bit small and I don't want to have it show, so I'm going to just grab a little mini dimensional to put in there in its place. All right, here's some here. Okay, so I'll grab my paper piercer, pick these guys up, and lay that one right into the center. And when I put this on, I want to make sure that I don't put my dimensional up where it's going to be here because it's going to make it really uneven. So I'll probably place the dimensionals here and here on the reverse side, okay? So it's down on the bottom of the bow. And then that way, when I take the adhesive backing off and place it onto the card front, it won't be unbalanced. Okay, and one more right there. All right, let's see how we're doing. That looks really nice. And what I'll do is now I'll just take those backing off. I'll just use my paper piercer to pick off the little adhesive backing. Like so. Pick this up, and now we will put our bow on. I'm going to pick up my card just so I can see where I'm placing this. And we'll just put it right there. Okay, just like so. And that's really all there is to the card. Now I do want to finish it off with some rhinestones because you can't have too much bling. So I'm going to use the Holiday Rhinestone Jewels, and I'm going to just put 3 of them onto the corner. Okay, I'll just place one in the corner. Just start here. I was happy that they brought these back. These are so pretty. One there and one here. Okay, like that. All right, and that's really all there is to making the card. Now I'm going to show you, you can see here that it will stand up on its own. It's getting a little top heavy, so it doesn't want to stand up on its own. So this is the perfect time for me to show you the little mechanism that we're going to use to hold it in place. So I mentioned early at the beginning of the video that we will need a piece of cardstock, Whisper White. This is the thick stuff once again, measuring 4 3/4 by 3/4 of an inch. And all you're going to do is fold in the 2 1/2-inch sections like so. And then where we've got the score line here, it will also fold. Now you'll notice it's not quite even, and that's intentional. You want the shorter, which is 2 inches, to be the piece that adheres to the back of your card, and this piece remains loose. So I'm going to use some Tombow once again, my favorite type of glue or adhesive. And I will put a bead of Tombow, keeping in mind I want that piece. I'm going to put the Tombow here and here. And then I'm going to lay that right into the card like so and fold it down. Okay, so we'll just put a touch of Tombow across here and across here. And we'll lay this right along the crease of the card. and make it straight, and then fold it up so that we know that it's not in the way and that it does adhere to the bottom of the base. And we'll just hold that for a second. And once it's stuck, then this little mechanism becomes the piece that becomes the foot plate, and that will allow you to hold the card upright. So I like to use a little bit of repositionable tape because sometimes that little foot plate doesn't want to stay in place, but as an alternate, you can always just tuck it right in underneath like that. I don't know if you can see that very well, but you can tuck it in if you don't want to put repositionable tape on it. And by doing so, it will allow the card to stand upright. So let me just grab a little piece of tape. I just bought this at the dollar store. It's double-sided repositionable tape. It means it's not permanent. It means that I'm able to take it on, put it on and off, and not have to worry about it being stuck to my card. All right, so then that's on like so. We'll just tuck it underneath, and then you can play with how high you want your card to stand. Either you can put it right nice and close, or you can put it at, you know, about maybe an inch and a bit out like that, and that will put your card in an upright position. That's all there is to it. So thank you so much for joining me today. I really enjoyed making this card for you. I hope you like my new fancy fold card that I'm calling a platform fold. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave comments in the at the bottom of the video. I will post all the measurements on the video as well in the description so that you don't have to worry about copying everything down. All right, have a fantastic day and see you soon.